Episode 55 at Winning at Work with Jonathan Netsky. This episode is brought to you by Join Us Search. Join Us Search is a food and beverage retained only national food and beverage recruiting company, and they specialize in identifying and placing sales, marketing, innovation, and operational professionals and executives. So if you're in the food and beverage space and you're looking to establish a new partnership with a national firm, Join Us Search is where you want to turn. Now let's talk about Jonathan Netsky and what you're going to learn about him today and about the Plant-Based Food Association, not just association, the industry. Jonathan has got a very interesting background. Comes out of University of Iowa with a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. That's right. You heard that right. He didn't come out of food or wasn't a food scientist. But what he did, he took his passion for growing food and for finding this sustainable system, and he took what his engineering career had given him around product development, lean manufacturing, technical marketing. He got into international business development experience. Well, he moves to Flagstaff, Arizona, and he ends up solving a problem that a local restaurant was having. And he created this really delicious veggie burger. And it was for a chain. And then it just expanded from there. Now, as an entrepreneur, he has encountered many challenges as he expands this business nationally. And he is doing so. But there are some very unique properties of his business and of any plant-based food organization that is adhering to sustainability, freshness, rather than trying to crank out high volume in a commercial setting and pumping it into the existing supply chain, which is really set up for that type of business. So you have this convergence of people want transparency, people want sustainability, they want small batch, but the system is set up for something completely different. How do you live? How do you operate? How do you grow a company when you're kind of fighting against this giant machine that's already in place? Well, Jonathan's going to tell you how he's doing it and how other plant-based food or other sustainability type businesses can thrive in this space. Stay tuned. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode with Jonathan Netsky. Thank you so much for joining us. Plant-based food is it's just on fire right now, isn't it?
It is. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk with you and get my mind rolling on some of the provoking questions that you're known for.
Well, thank you for that. And, as this food service and food and beverage podcast continues to gather steam across the country, this is a very, very important topic. Just, what are the challenges? What are the trends that are going on in plant-based foods? But before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your company? Because you've got a really, really unique platform here at NexVeg. And, tell us a little bit about the company, kind of what you're known for, and maybe a little bit of your backstory too, because I think it was kind of an interesting way that you kind of found your passion for this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my business is called Local Alternative Foods. And our product lines that our house brand product lines are called NexVeg. Reality for us was that I, am a mechanical engineer with a background in technical marketing and sales, and I really had always had a lifelong passion to really be working in food to a great extent. That passion to work in food had come from seeing the power and the impact that changing someone's diet can have on them, personally and in a lifelong way. And I, really carried that into opportunity in my own life to transition my profession and move from that engineering world into as they say, as the entrepreneur jumps off the cliff, and, I moved close enough to the Grand Canyon that I had to be careful because there are a lot of cliffs available.
Because you literally are near the Grand Canyon.
We're about 70 miles from the Grand Canyon, and my passion drove me to a place where, people live and vacation every day, as opposed to the lifestyle I was in of working all year long to take a vacation. And, my values in local food and really local commerce and the extraordinary added value that comes to communities through local commerce drove us into what became a local food catering business here in Flagstaff, Arizona, that became known for having a food system exclusively of Arizona-grown meats, cheeses, produce, fruits, and the ability to network that food system from the farms to the consumers that needed it, whether we were adding value to it, catering, or, passing it through to somebody else who might process it.
I have seen it firsthand what you're describing about how changing someone's diet can definitely impact their life in a meaningful way. And I know you experienced that as well. And that was a big part of what kind of opened your eyes to this, platform of just eating better. I know there's lots of diets out there. I know my wife was on Whole30, and that's, all just, whole natural foods. And you just clean out all the crap that, is in all this processed food. And when I did a little research before, we jumped on this episode here, we're looking at about $16.5 billion in revenue in 2020 for plant-based foods. And it's projected that by 2025, we're going to have over 40 billion in sales. That's staggering, isn't it?
It is, but there's an incredible amount of energy behind it, and it's generational energy. So it's like a head of steam built on generations that are coming into earning income and spending that income on the decisions that they've made. And those decisions may be very generationally different. And so I believe that those numbers are certainly possible. But if you go and read the next analyst study, you're going to get different numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because they're all projections. And so the key is that there's extreme growth and there's extreme opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And you being the CEO at the head of Local Alternative Foods, I thought this would just be a great time for us to talk about, what are the challenges facing an entrepreneur in a plant-based system, as well as, some of your wins and your victories. And, I'd love to, as we get more into the podcast, hear a little bit more about some of your brands and, kind of what what you find is really hot, what's really selling for you. So let's just start with, trends in the food space in general. What are you seeing right now?
It's a great question, and trends in the food space that we're seeing. I've been in the local food movement for, the better part of 2 decades, and in different parts of the country and the world. And I've actually never seen the kind of energy around local food that's taking place right now. And when I say energy, big national companies are contacting, us directly and saying, can you give us this with a local food essence? Can you give us this with a local food essence? And these are like, convenience store delivery systems, to restaurant chains, et cetera. And so there's an incredible essence, I think, coming out of the pandemic, looking towards this word local that's after, well over a decade of it being a significant marketing term. It's now become analogous with transparent, food transparency or food integrity. If it's local, I know where it comes from and I know what that food is. And it has a sense that it's secure to me and it's safe and it's health giving and it's life giving. And it benefits my community or someone I know that's part of that system. That's taken on a morphism to almost what you said your wife was participating in, a Whole30 diet. How different is the notion of buying local food to some people from the idea of simply buying whole food, going back to that idea that I got something that I can tell came from a source. I didn't get something that was, smashed up, mixed up, processed with chemicals, and turned into something that I can't recognize the original food anymore. So that whole food diet to some degree has become a booming sensation and trend and premised in so many different aspects of our language and the lexicon around it that, that's what we're really seeing going into 2021 above and beyond anything else.
You go to these local farmers markets and you see all the local growers and the small businesses that have been tinkering around with either their farms or ideas that they have in their kitchen. But you've taken it to another level. I mean, interestingly, with your background in with engineering to go into food, tell us, some of the challenges and some of the wins that you've had as you kind of transitioned your passion into some great products to now getting more national recognition. And of course, your distribution is starting to expand along with that. Yes.
That's the challenges. I think there's challenges that come along with being an entrepreneur that, everybody that's kind of walked down that path can relate to. Most people run into similar challenges at certain growth stages. I can add to that a level of complexity that we're doing this from one of the most remote places in the country. Some people might position us between, two deserts, essentially, in the Sonoran and the Mojave, and we're on a mountaintop somewhere in between. It's a really remote place without an incredibly rich agricultural scene. Putting that aside, growth and working in the food system is really complicated. We work with food service clients predominantly as opposed to retail, and the opportunity to figure out who are the right clients that are well aligned from a food and culinary perspective, but also there's actually an opportunity where you can make that deal happen because there's distribution alignment. So, one of the biggest challenges that we've seen over the years and feel like we've really overcome at this point in time, putting, that sort of recipe together, have we cracked the code on it, became that we were putting this whole food essence product into a marketplace and distribution system that not only didn't understand whole food plant-based, but didn't even understand plant-based when we started the conversation. A Boca burger was what was on everybody's menu. An Amy's burger. Those were the products that were really out there versus the incredible wave of energy, money, energy, and products that have come into the plant-based market that lead to the numbers that you just presented and the CAGRs that you're talking about. The beauty of where we're at today is that I think there's a real acknowledgement that trending to a plant-based economy from an animal-based economy, especially within our food system, but never forgetting the byproducts that flow from our food system, is at the heart of the greatest argument out there to say we have a sustainability challenge on Earth. We have an inability to say, are we going to and I'm not getting into a dissertation on the challenges with our food system, but is it going to get too hot? Is it going to get too dry? We're worried about these things. Future generations are worried about them to an even greater extent and have a greater, potential knowledge base. How do we go from comparing animals and plants to actually comparing what is a path to sustainability and what is not an actual path to sustainability, might just be better than something else?
Yeah, it's a huge trend. It's a huge trend. People are very concerned about future generations. And if you do any kind of research about what it takes to raise animal-based protein versus, these substitutes, I mean, it's hands down, it's much more efficient. Right.
And so do we need to have that conversation further, or is it definitive? I think the conversation that we're really that we're missing out on is whether or not we should be focused on the idea of simply doing better, or if we should be, doing less harm than something else, or should we be focused on the reality of the greatest good? And I'm just not sure that the focus out there today is on that greatest good versus doing less harm than an animal in the plant-based space. And I believe that's why the trend to local and whole food and otherwise is starting to come on so strong, because it's so incredibly evident that the less you process a food item from the time it comes off of a farm to the time you get to consume it, the less embodied energy it has, the less carbon footprint, the less every other aspect, the more genuine quality nutrition it has in it, right? The fresher it is. And so I think this is all leading to that same trend in whole food.
Yeah, this is definitely the trend. And I think, as we discussed before we got on kind of live here today, we talked about one of your superpowers, and that was really this ability to kind of understand, what is pleasing to customers. And I think that is also one of the trends, right? Is just, getting the right food in front of the right people at the right time, because you can have these great alternatives, but if it's not, if it doesn't fit on the menu, you're not going to drive sales.
The plant-based menu strategy has really become the essence of what local alternative foods has focused on. It's no longer about any specific product. We've seen that strategy out there, and we see it only has a certain amount of shelf life to it. What really matters is when you, as a restaurateur, as an owner, or as an executive chef, as the person responsible for the menu, when you find a menu item that people love, that sticks, that becomes a predictable element in your profitability for your food service, that's what they're after. And we are now just seeing so clearly how to do that not only are we in a position to look at a menu, and we have a local restaurant here in Flagstaff, great, it's been on Triple D, called Brandy's Bakery and Cafe. They've been a client for years, and they had a single item where they would just have a burger patty, and they'd make our NexVeg into a NexVeg burger on their menu. But they have a big menu of salads and omelets, and they're really known for their Benedicts. And all of a sudden, they started ordering triple the amount of product on a regular basis, just a few months ago. And I checked in, said, "Hey, what's going on?" He goes, "Oh, we changed the menu. We added a couple items, as you guys have been talking about, and we're just selling, we got 3 items. We're selling 3 times as much product now." And so, from simple opportunities like that are really easy to see when you're watching the plant-based market every day, but a lot of times our clients aren't watching it as closely because it still doesn't represent the majority of their menu unless they're, in a special niche.
Right.
It led us down that path of, well, what are the next products that people need? And so aside from the plant-based to whole food proteins that we've been making in multiple different bases and product lines for years, we're adding now whole food plant-based cheesy and nacho sauces, 100% dehydrated vegetables and fruits. And in the restaurant world, they add some hot water, or they boil down the beer at the brewery and make beer cheese out of it. And people are really seeing how this complements a menu strategy, because whether it be a double cheeseburger that they can now put on the menu, which is dairy-free and allergen-free and everything else and is plant-based, or it's an upsell, pretzels with the beer cheese. It's really, we're seeing how plant-based strategies continues to evolve down all the other avenues that are available to generate revenue on a menu.
I know this is it might not be real easy to answer, but I'd be kind of curious to know, just in terms of profitability of a plant-based item on a menu versus a traditional protein-based. I assume are they similar, or is there higher profitability with plant-based?
That's going to be a product specific, very, very much so, because if you look, you can still get, a product that is based on protein isolates and wheat gluten and, a kind of the veggie burger from the past for, a fraction of the price of what you might pay for a top shelf product like we make. Yet, if you look at the products that are out there that have gone, very quickly into massive distribution, and with that massive expense in their infrastructure for marketing and everything else, those products are, significantly more than our product. But if you take a different lens and you say, well, is the plant-based stuff more expensive than the meat-based alternative? Again, entirely product-based. At the low end, those veggie burgers were designed to meet that same price point, to fit on the bun at the same profitability. We're seeing a trend where these really expensive items, they're coming in sometimes 4 times the cost of beef for a beef analog. And is the profitability there? Well, that's going to, again, depend on menu strategy and what you're willing to do in terms of raising your prices to accommodate it. Now, we've also seen the market for those things starting to come down, but there's an incredible wall of an inflation hitting us. These are all oil-based products, and the crush seed market, I just saw this morning, is doing incredibly well, which means the price of those oils is going to go up with inflation as well here.
Yeah, I imagine pricing anything on a menu has so many different variables. So I figured that was the situation there. It all just depends. Yeah,
it does. It does depend greatly, and I think that the key for us as a menu strategists that make products to support it and are in a position to customize those products to culinary profiles or to even to price points, as we've done to make products for university dining environments where they're on a very fixed cost. They want the benefits of a whole food plant-based product because it's an everyone can eat it product, no allergens, no hard to understand ingredients, but they need it at an extremely low price point to meet the swipe of a card for those meal plans. And so being able to fit into the price point or the culinary profile, or sometimes even just the form factor is critical to go to a hoagie versus, a round bun. It really makes a huge difference for our clients to be able to provide them specifically what they need to drive their menu within the scope of how their menu is profitable, right? You don't want to be the anomaly on the menu that makes them behave differently. And so that's where we really find the key to helping them with their strategy.
Well, you talk about strategy, and I'm curious. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to get into this line of business, this plant-based food, do you start with the food in mind, or do you start with where are the gaps on the menu and then go and create the food to fit that? It seems like it's a chicken or the egg. Which direction do you go?
As an entrepreneur in the food system, I can't tell you how many times a day we have to discuss chickens and eggs. And I'm a plant-based business, right? I mean, the chicken and egg reality is ever present. We're at a growth stage right now that puts us in a position to say, the clients that want our product want to see us in a bigger facility. Okay, well, how do we bridge the gap to get there, right? And these become potentially complex problems. So if you're going to look to get into this space, we get calls regularly as a contract manufacturer and otherwise. I think there's really there's a fundamental that I would recommend, having lived through the trials, tribulations, challenges, some successes. Understand when you're going into the marketplace what the distribution methods are to get to the clients that you want to get to. And if you believe in the existing food system and want to participate in it and add your volume into it, then find the right people to partner to align with and see if you can make that distribution connection happen, because those are the clients that you're going to be serving. And if you've made the right product for those clients or not, that would put you in a situation where you say, okay, well, I've made the product. Do I need to find the clients for this product? Because food distribution is so different than direct distribution, there's so many layers to it. It really is the essence of figuring out how to move it forward. And so I would say that would be your best place to start.
Well, you talked about distribution methods. So because you are a local, an alternative type of food, is your distribution method different than the traditional?
It is. It is. At the scale that we've been at, we've grown through, very small scale to, approaching to be less of a small scale business. And, the reality is we're in Flagstaff, Arizona, considered high mountain desert. There's a 2-hour distance to a major economy in Phoenix for us. And there's a 3+ hour distance to a major economy in Vegas. Otherwise, there's no real economies around us. So distribution, while we, have the greatest footprint for a veggie burger in a place like Flagstaff, locally in Sedona, building in Phoenix and Tucson, the distribution method for us is often direct. And so we have a facility in Flagstaff. We have a warehouse in Phoenix. We direct distribute to 90% of our client base through those two methods. We also utilize FedEx as well as to hit clients that are in places like Mammoth Caves in Kentucky or Noto Sandwich Shop in Iowa, Fort George Brewery in Astoria, Oregon. We can FedEx our products directly to them and hit really almost, I'd say 80% of the country. And so now we're at the stage where, while we've worked with some distributors and we work with some today, we're looking at what is our growth opportunity. Because again, if you followed me there, not only do I have a distance to get to Phoenix and Vegas, but they're also isolated in the desert. So we have to get frozen product to, other distribution hubs throughout the country. And that becomes, where this is obviously the most prevalent element in my mind. As we continue to grow and we continue to ship more direct, we're also looking for the right connections, that clearly exist in the food system today to help us drive the product forward in other regions.
So you're isolated in the desert selling frozen products.
Isn't that cool?
Is that what I'm hearing?
and you think that a mechanical engineer wouldn't have put himself in this position, right?
You just wanted a triple challenge on top of everything else.
It could be the hardest place potentially to have tried to do what we're doing, but we believe that just means that everything that we grow into from here will be a lot easier.
Right. Well, you've proven the model, and now as you move into bigger markets, frankly, you're going to get into areas where distribution is going to be, easier to access. But on top of that, you'll have better access to talent, and obviously, you're going to need talent as you kind of grow and build your business and add salespeople and kind of get out in front of those customers. Tell us a little bit more about what I would call your superpower. You've talked about this ability to kind of understand kind of where the market is headed, but at the same time, then you've got to figure out what products that's going to relate into. You manage your staff quite well. What has really enabled you to be successful? What are some of these superpowers that you're using that other people listening to this podcast can say, hey, I can take that back. I can use that myself, in my daily work in the food and beverage space?
See, these are, like I said, those tremendously provoking questions that, they take you back a little bit sometimes too. and I gotta say that I was well read enough to have found a self-help book that said, you know what? One of the things you should do is write a letter to your 10 closest friends, people who know you the best, and ask them what your unique ability is, what your superpower is. And I did this a couple times throughout my life. Once for myself, once when I was about to have a child, I wrote them all and said, hey, what am I not thinking about that you guys who have had a child already are thinking about, that you wish you did, And you get those golden nuggets from doing this. And this relates to my superpower. My closest, oldest friend said to me, you have this ability to see through the questions, to develop the questions, to see the problems that will ensue and identify them long before they happen. And I took that to heart. And at the same time, I didn't realize for many years, unfortunately, that this was truly also my greatest fault. And the opportunity that sat within all of the problems I was finding was not my focus, but the problems were. And
was that operational analysis, that situation analysis paralysis that you couldn't move?
Analysis paralysis can come into play, but I had gotten over that to a certain degree. But I think it even more so than preventing me from move, it might have caused me to move too much, to pivot too fast, to pivot too quickly. And
you have to explain that. I'm not tracking with you because that sounds like a good thing to be able to do, is to see through a problem to see what could happen. But where was that an Achilles heel?
The Achilles heel is in whether you've seen the problem through fully or not before you pivoted away from it. So could we have driven down a few roads a little bit further and not turned off and found some success earlier versus, seeing what we thought was an imminent danger, too large of a wall or otherwise, and not seeing the right path through or around it because we didn't go.
Got it. You're talking about seeing a potential roadblock. So, I mean, frankly, that sounds like very wise counsel, right? Don't go down a dead end. But you're saying that later in life,
what if I didn't know it wasn't a dead end?
It wasn't a dead end. Well, so how do you sort that out? I mean, so what's your takeaway from that?
Your shift is you go from, you stop being a pessimist and you focus on becoming an optimist, and you look for those opportunities in each of those roadblocks. You say, oh, there's a whole bunch of wood I can take and turn it into something else sitting in the middle of the road. Great. And you build a bridge with that wood that was a roadblock over the bump in the road, and you keep moving. And occasionally, you do see something that you say, no, I really don't see any ways around this, and we need to take a strong pivot. But what we learned from getting this far down the road means that maybe we just need, that new type of asphalt or that special new digger to get over this hole, and we'll be able to go after this channel again when we're ready. And I think that's really the clarity that's come, and is that if you can see those opportunities in the roadblocks and bring your unique products, skills, and talent to help you address and reshape the road.
So do you have a team of people that you then work with to analyze and look at these kind of future roadblocks or problems, or is this kind of left to you, the entrepreneur, to sort that out? Because I would think that would be, well, if I was in that position, I think that would be challenging. I would always be seeking outside counsel. I like to brainstorm and get other people involved. So what's worked for you? Do you use a team of people to analyze this, or do you kind of internalize it all yourself?
We absolutely use a team of people. We've had some great mentors, identify us over the years and reach out to us and say, interested in your business from this level or that. And I just came from a meeting this morning where we were addressing specifically, the geographical roadblocks and opportunities to approaching new markets as it relates to the distribution channels. And leveraging not only my operations team, but a mentor that has logistics experience outside of the food realm, it can really point out some of these unique opportunities that other people might not be thinking about. And so I really rely on a board that I'm actually building a few additional people onto at this point, looking for some special expertise. And in food distribution, for one. And that's why it's been a hot topic today for us, as well the opportunity where I've got just great and wonderful mentors that are willing to take a call at any time, from people who've run, food advertising and magazines, to people that have successfully exited 4 or 5 businesses they've grown from the bottom up themselves. And I think that's where it really helps to take those roadblocks and turn them into opportunities, is to have people who've made a living out of doing it habitually.
Well, it sounds like you definitely have identified distribution as one of your roadblocks, but I think you've also touched on one of the other elements that has come up quite a bit on the podcast, and that is the right usage of a mentor. So you've seeked out outside counsel of an expert. We've been very fortunate, as I've said, to have some people come out of the woodwork to us and have other connections that have made sense. But you are, to point out, we're in a very, the town I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, which many people might remember if they've been to the Grand Canyon, doesn't have sprawl. It doesn't have, a variety of other manufacturers and so forth, or food businesses really to be party to. So especially during COVID without travel, the phone, the Zoom, the reaching out to past and present mentors has been absolutely critical. And I'm so grateful to all the people out there that are so wonderfully giving of their time and knowledge, and so willing to have those conversations, whether I listened to them and took their advice last time or not, to keep plowing forward and keeping up with us. Going back to the challenges, though, I can imagine if you have and you've got a really nice, high-end substitute here for hamburgers. Do you find that you're in a situation where you're having to educate your customer? Because that can get awfully expensive, right? So when a customer looks at your product, they say, hey, is this too healthy? I mean, I see everything in my hamburger. I mean, people are just used to just eating a brown patty. They don't think anything of it. And then now they've got your really natural, organic product. Do you find that's kind of been a challenge in plant-based food? Is this, having to educate the customer?
Depends on which customer you're talking about. So it sounds to me as if you're talking about the person who's eating the product, right? And the person who's eating the product, well, they had to make a decision to get that far in the first place. And it's not typically the person who's looking for the satiation from meat that looks to order our product. And most of our restaurants wouldn't say that, it might be a meat analog in the sense that it sits on the same bun, but it's not a replacement for the meat that's out there, a substitute, but it's not a meat replicant. And it's never presented in that way because it's not its intention that we're trying to get people to believe that they're eating something they're not. Right. That's the outspoken deception of the products that are. They're telling you, we want you to believe it's something else. That's right. Not ever the goal with a chef using our product.
Okay. I appreciate you bringing that distinction up because most of the times when I see a plant-based food, it's a substitute for something else. Like
when it is a substitute, it replaces it on the bun. It fits in the same spot in that same price point. And the reality is you can use a lot of the same toppings, right? So it does substitute or replace it with a plant-based version, a plant-based economy to it. But the goal isn't that it tastes like something else than it is. It's goal that it's the best version of what it is. And that is a combination of wonderful whole foods that you probably have eaten during the course of the last week anyways, just not in this form. Did you have a bowl of oatmeal? Did you eat a salad with some, carrots and onions in it? Maybe there were some toasted sunflower seeds on it. I mean, you've eaten everything that's in our food that week, most likely, just not in a formable, shapeable product that can be utilized in the same fashion as a sausage link, a meatball, a burger, or a taco ground.
Yeah, no, it's good. Well, it's good because I talk to potential customers and clients, and I've had people come to me recently, and I even reached out to you because there was a client looking for a substitute for fish, and again, they're looking as plant-based to kind of take a swap, right? Like they've got this menu item and they're holding it in their right hand, and in their left hand, they're taking a plant-based product, and they're just like, okay, close your eyes, quick, boom. Now look, it looks just like the hamburger, or it looks like sushi, and yet it's got this plant-based form. So what you're talking about is
you hit the nail honestly on the head, but I've never had it come to me with a negative connotation, and that was, I love this product because I can see what it's made of. I can see whole beans and whole seeds and whole carrots and whole kale. I can really see the food in this product. I know what it's made of. And going back to that notion that local actually equals transparent, equals food integrity, equals whole food, all these things are kind of grouped together without any real definition. They're more natural, but they're more wholesome. That is seeing the real food in the patty. And when you chop it up, getting the beauty of all these little, the beauty of whole food value, but in a form that's as versatile and easy to use as ground meat.
Yeah. And not to make that a negative connotation, I think that would just be I think it's good. I think you're right. You can see
it's our number one compliment. When you said it, I was like, that's an interesting way to view it. But that's what we hear more often from the people who reach out and want to tell us they love our product is, I love that I could see the whole food in it.
Yeah. I guess, I guess You kind of called me out on that because I'm in that transitional phase of, I'm transitioning. I'm trying to use more of the plant-based foods. So sometimes my wife will surprise me with something, and I'm getting better at it.
What are you finding in trying these things? What's your experience with them from both a taste perspective as well as how does it sit afterwards? Do you get good energy? Does it, some of them didn't sit very long. Have been some of the challenges we've seen in the marketplace.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Definitely, it can't just be a one-off. You have to kind of stick with it a little bit longer, but definitely like a cleaner energy. The thing that stands out to me more than anything is this textural. I'm still getting used to the texture of some of these things. I'm just, you grow up on steak and potatoes and then you realize, hey, it'd be nice to transition to something else. You're just having to get used to a different texture. So that's been the big, issue.
I had one argument myself that, I'm not we all are co-opetition in the plant-based space today. It's a small universe and it still represents a very small portion of the overall, multi-trillion-dollar food market. But if I had one real challenge with the plant-based world out there, I'm not so sure that the right path is to be manipulating the ingredients with the goal of continuing to have people satiate themselves with meat if the end goal is to not have the meat-based economy.
I see your point.
Right? And so
I see your point. It's like you're presenting it to make it look like meat, right? So what you're saying, it should be like a different form altogether. Isn't that what you're saying? It should be plated in a different form or a different presentation?
Well, if we're attempting to get people to not want to consume as much meat, and when accessible to them, there's an option that's made out of plant-based oils and isolates and so forth. It's a plant-based product. It's not a meat product, but it keeps the appetite for meat. It's attempting to satiate the same oral and olfactory emotional senses, right? And so what you're doing is you're preserving the reality.
I see where you're going with that
in the diet. And if we're attempting to move people's desire for meat away from animals, my belief and approach to this challenge, which is very much so a sustainability approach as well, is to say, hey, I know that when I stop eating meat, I lose a taste for it. Now, I was actually more of a cheese lover than anything else, and it did not do well for me. And years ago, when I gave up cheese, I also gave up the appetite for being satiated by sort of that hard yet luscious sort of fat that you can bite into in a cube of cheddar or something. After years, I don't crave it anymore. I don't have a desire to throw cheese on everything like I used to eat cheese as my primary protein. And so I believe the same is very true, whether it be meat, eggs, or any other animal product. If you're maintaining the appetite for it, you're maintaining the appetite for it. If we want to remove it fundamentally from the economy and change the way it fits into the economy, maybe, then maybe we should look at it through the lens of shouldn't we satiate with something that actually does meet a different set of values.
So do you think this is for lack of a better word, an addiction, if you will? Because you're right. Once you give it up, eventually you do stop craving it. And it's that way with sugar too.
It is. And it's true of almost any of these, refined ingredients and, oils, sugars, and so forth. And there's a lot of science out there. And, that's the details of that science isn't really where I spend my energy. I understand it very clearly. And I think that is exactly that. There's an addiction associated. And, one of them is one of the most innovative things out there in the food world in the past few years has been this specific notion that we could make plants that turned into a meat-like substance. And from a specific plant element, we could satiate the mouth feel, and as well as the emotional response to iron that would otherwise come from meat, right? And so this is the HEMA protein that Impossible Burgers put in to their product and became known for, and patented, I believe. And so that becomes the question again: should the goal have been to turn the soybean into the beauty of soy, or should it be to use the soybean to satiate people's appetite for meat? I'm not saying I have the answer to the question for everyone, but I have a difference in opinion than let's keep going down the path of meat. And this is a marketing marvel and an absolutely amazing thing that's been done to move into the fake meat market and to create this marketplace. It's brilliant, but does it solve for the end game? And from the two things that we've talked about, whole food being the lowest footprint and moving people away from the desire for meat, I think that those are the things that I kind of founded my products on, and the principles that we believe in, and the manufacturing processes that we've developed specifically to convert 100% whole foods into these types of versatile usable products. We've taken a different path, and we see there's a market for both without question. We sit side by side on menus with beef, chicken, pork, fake meat, fake chicken, and our whole food proteins, and we wouldn't be sitting side by side if we weren't selling at least as much as the other products.
Well, you're clearly passionate about this industry and the product and the food that you're making and impacting people's lives through whole foods. So how much effort do you spend in trying to identify either distributors that are catering to those people, or are trying to identify restaurants who are attracting those types of people? Because that would seem to be the trick, is to, activate those people so they can pull that product through.
Indeed. It's a bunch of our time. Do you headhunt for that, Tony? Is that where we can go
I wasn't fishing for that. I wasn't fishing for that.
Use it.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's kind of that's really the nuanced side of being a headhunter, right? We have to create solutions for the customer. So if that's a problem, then I have to go out and find it. So I have to identify, salespeople that have maybe sold into that market, or maybe who already know those distributors. So that would be an element added into a search.
Our belief is that the greatest impact we can have is through exclusively whole food. We've done the science and the data to prove that. We'll actually be releasing some white papers and some other content, from third parties in the next few months that show some of that as well. And I believe that there's lots of companies out there having similar challenges. We believe that the impact is most scalable for us through the larger volume opportunities. And so we didn't focus on consumer products goods, but it focused on food service, where we want to see people buying, hundreds of portions at a time as opposed to a couple. And really seeing that escalation, and finding the right distributors that not only work in food service, but work in food service with companies that are premised on quality or local or whole food. That's they absolutely exist. And so aligning with those partners, I think, is really what is our actionable call out today that we're very focused on.
Right. And so if you were to ask me to go find that, that's what we would do. We had to go out and find a salesperson who has experience, opening up, that marketplace.
Right. Our brokers that are already aligned with it, distributors are aligned with it.
Brokers right. Yeah. And I don't know if it would be, I'm not sure it'd be a broad line distributor. That they sound too generic to me. I think you're going to go, I'm guessing you're going to be a little more specific with kind of unique distributors.
Well, there are, with interest from extremely large companies that are really beyond our current scale. We weren't designed to flip over to contract manufacturing instantaneously. We're building the path to be able to handle them. And so I think that there's a variety of different levels of distributors you're pointing out. And depending on, who the clients work with that really want to pull the product through, I think we'll start to see that the right thing is to go pocket by pocket, regionally.
Well, as we wrap up here, we're going to talk a little bit about talent, but why don't we use this opportunity. Is there are there people, are there skill sets, are there professionals out there that you would like to attract to your company or have them, reach out and connect with you for future opportunities? This is a good opportunity to put a general call out.
I think there's the opportunity to work with us from perspective of a great packaging designer that really understands the difference in the footprint that we currently have and that needs to extend into packaging, as well as with our growth, we're certainly bringing in more and more labor, and the more labor we bring in to make product leads to more technical management and production and operations. Being that we're in such a remote place like Flagstaff, as you and I have talked, I'm actually putting myself back into that position because it's easier to hire for other positions. And I think other than that, we're in this interim. We're just in are we post-COVID? Are we not post-COVID? We're having record-breaking months sequentially, but it's still hard to say, what's going to go on over the rest of the year. And, from that perspective, the other partners that we're looking for are the people that have great marketing engines of their own, whether it's through their brick and mortar restaurant and they need the right product to attack the plant-based world, or it's people who are out there marketing product through e-marketplaces and they're looking for that differentiated product in the plant-based space that, is validated. And so I think that it's really a lot of the marketing, sales, and distribution that we're looking for the right alignment, the right partners.
It sounds like a really exciting time. There's so many different avenues you can go. You can go, you can supply into ghost kitchens and virtual kitchens and all these companies that just want to start up, and you can just be that perfect addition to, whatever proteins they're looking to add. Jonathan, this has just been a great conversation. I know we took lots of twists and turns on this conversation, but it's just a fascinating industry, and you as an entrepreneur and the business owner, you're touching so many different aspects of the business. I just had to look at some of these different facets and just kind of the things that you're dealing with. And it sounds like it's the classic struggle of an entrepreneur. You could probably do everything yourself. You just can't clone 5 of you. That's what you need.
Imparting I've got a great team. We've got some vested players on the team, and people really, step up, learn new skills, and fill in those gaps. And I think, as you said, being able to find more people that are willing to take it on their back at the same time as building systems so that they can, keep the business moving forward. It's challenging, but we'll look forward to the opportunity to need to do that again soon.
Well, we'll have a follow-up episode one of these days, and we're just going to see just what wonderful unfoldment we've had. And here I am I'm in Atlanta, so I've already put the flag in the ground. I said, I can't go to Kentucky. That's too far. We got to get you into Atlanta. It's a hotbed of vegetarianism here.
We're excited and looking forward to the opportunity. I think we just got to find the right chain that needs a pallet a month there, and we're good.
Exactly. Well, we'll talk offline. Maybe I know a couple.
Perfect.
Jonathan, thank you. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tony.